Good evening. I'll call this July 23rd, 2024 Fairfield Town Plan and Zoning Commission meeting to order. Go to our first item. Beforehand, Commissioner Ford is not here. Commissioner, I'm sorry.
Siebert.
I'm sorry, Joe.
My
Commissioner
mother
Siebert.
always forgets my
No,
first name. The youngest of 7 kids.
Commissioner Siebert, you're up.
Commissioner Hawkeye.
Okay, we'll start with our meeting minutes, July 9th, 2024. May I have a motion on the item? Motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve, yes.
Is there a second? Commissioner Siebert seconds.
Minutes look good to me, no edits, no changes.
Siebert, anything further?
Nothing.
Any comments, questions from the rest of the commission? Can we put this to a vote? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. See 7 hands, so it passes unanimously. Next item to recommend a public hearing, 190 Post Road, special exception, special permit and coastal site plan application of UAG Fairfield CP LLC pertaining to new construction of an automobile dealership in the design commercial district, design industrial district. Nothing further.
I don't have much to say, Mr. Chairman. I think you're all familiar with this site. It's been written about, requires public.
May I have a motion? Harrison,
I'll make a motion to go to public hearing.
second. Commissioner Corsillo, seconds. Anything further?
No.
Required on, what was it called, Commissioner Levy?
Special exception.
No, the road. What would you call it last time? Oh, this is Post Road, I'm sorry, not Commerce Drive.
Exact side.
Sorry, yeah.
Commerce Drive is Auto Park.
Yeah, Auto Park, yeah. Sorry, Post Road, this is Exide. Thank you. We'll do a vote. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands. Passes unanimously. Old business, 719, 723 South Pine Creek Road, request of Montauk Builders LLC for 100% release of a $17,655 bond pertaining to subdivision improvements in B zone. Ms. Wentz.
Mr. Chairman, the subject site was approved for 2-lot subdivision on September 13th of 2022. Bonded improvements included new concrete curbing, sidewalk, and driveway apron. 2 street trees were provided on the private property. Due to the width of the right-of-way and potential driveway sightline issues, the tree warden has approved that planting, and the engineering department has recommended 100% release. So we concur with that opinion.
Thank you. Commissioner Purcell, are you up to speed?
Yep.
Okay. We have our 7. May I have a motion? Commissioner Braun.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Motion to release.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve bond release, yes. Is there a second? Second, Commissioner Corsillo.
Yeah, just to clarify again, the 2 street trees were required, normally they would be in the right of way, but now they would be on the private property portion.
Correct.
As a sight line.
There's the back edge of the sidewalk is pretty much at the property line. There wasn't a lot of room there, plus proximate to the driveway, so they kind of moved them out to the outer edges of the site, pretty close to the side.
Any further? Commissioner Corsillo.
Engineering Department and Tree Warden recommend approval.
We have those confirmations in the record. Anything further? We'll vote. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands. See 7 hands, so it passes unanimously. Old Dam Road, Pine Creek, special permit and coastal site plan application of the town of Fairfield pertaining to replacement and relocation of existing tide gates in the floodplain district. Mr. Wentz.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the town is seeking to replace 3 existing outfall pipes that penetrate the existing Pine Creek dike. The existing tide gates allow for tidal flushing to promote growth of tidal marsh grasses and support tidal marsh species while preventing the growth of invasive Phragmites grasses that choke the tidal marsh and present a fire hazard. The pipes and tide gates were installed in 1982 and are in need of replacement. The existing outfall pipes will remain in place while the new pipes are installed and then will ultimately be filled and abandoned in place. The 5 outfall pipes will include 3 self-regulating tide gates as presently exist, and 2 additional flapper type tide gates. This will allow for the same ability to regulate incoming tidal flushing and provide for additional capacity for storm flows to discharge from the marsh to Long Island Sound. This project received DEEP approval for structures and dredging permit prior to this application. We also made a referral to the Coastal Resource Management Division of DEEP. It finds that the project is consistent with the coastal resource policies, and also our staff report finds the same, with the recommendation that the applicant adhere to the recommendation of the National Diversity Database referral, and 2, that proper erosion and sedimentation practices are employed. But if those 2 things are adhered to, it is our opinion that this project is consistent with coastal resource policy.
Those need to be conditions of approval.
Yeah, I think it would be prudent to do so.
May I have a motion on the item? Commissioner Braun,
Motion to approve with the conditions, and I have a recommendation, but I'll bring it up during the.
say what the recommendation is so we can,
Recommendation is that during the management, once it's installed, and I don't know if that's appropriate for us, but I did speak to Mr. Stanky, who invented the tide gate. And he mentioned we have some, and he of course retired in 2014.
well, just what's the, I'm sorry,
Okay,
just,
the recommendation is that we consult or seek guidance from him regarding the management once these tide gates are installed. There's an experience up on Ash Creek where the upper reaches of the salt marsh could be not dewatered, but dry out gradually, because what you're doing is you're adding the ability to the water to exit during floods faster, but that can make it exit faster in all instances, thereby drying up, not leaving enough wet time for the water to stay there. This is from a layperson's point
but
of
the
view. So
recommendation,
the recommendation is that the Conservation Department, which I believe will be managing this, at least acknowledge that issue, and maybe they have in their other management, I don't know, but that they seek out guidance or suggestions or advice from Mr. Stanky, who invented the tide gates and has, decades of experience with it and experiencing other issues. We don't want to dry out any part of the marsh, and apparently this marsh, the water's gone all the way up to Thorpe Street, according to something at high tide. So that's really a management issue, but I think it's worth noting
that's
anyway.
fine, I just want to, because I don't understand, I just want to understand the recommendation. The recommendation is seek guidance from Mr. Stanky, is it Mr. or Doctor?
For adjustment of the tide gates to ensure that the marsh is not dewatered too quickly, I guess you could say.
Be just Mr. Stanky and others, I guess, as well, does it have to be him?
Whoever has experience with it.
I just want to get what the motion is. Commissioner Harrison,
I'd like to second it, but I have some comments.
of course, yeah, so let's go back to Commissioner Braun for anything further.
So I'm just gonna read my notes because that'll explain it better than I do. Okay, so the problem arises when the incoming tidal water passes up Pine Creek through the 3 standard self-regulating tide gates into the interior salt marsh, where it moves forward landward all the way up to Thorpe Street. The incoming 3-gate tide water will still be flowing upstream when the high tide is reached and the flow reverses back to the dike where the 3 self-regulating tide gates and the 2 conventional tide gates, those are the ones that allow more water out, I believe. Those are the adders, will all be opened up to begin discharging the salt water from the marsh. This 5-gate accelerated discharge results in reduced saltwater soak time back on the marsh. The reduced saltwater soak time has several consequences. It reduces salt in the marsh peat through increased rainwater dilution, thereby adversely affecting the natural salt marsh plants and critters. It decreases the amount of water in the marsh peat, thereby allowing the marsh peat to become less wet and decompose. These factors result in a drier salt marsh with soil conditions that allow upland species to grow on the marsh to the disadvantage of the natural salt marsh species. In a relatively short period of time, the less wet salt marsh upstream of the dike will appear markedly different, drier and less healthy, with vegetation and animal species reflecting that adverse condition. The town found this problem on Ash Creek Salt Marsh behind Milton Street, where they had a smaller diameter self-regulating tide in the marina allowed the incoming water to flow into the marsh, and then a larger tide gate that allowed it out immediately after high tide and discharged the salt water, which greatly reduced the quote soak time in the marsh. The continued growth of Phragmites, which is an invasive species which nobody wants in their marsh, in the salt marsh, is an indication of this problem. This problem can be mitigated, if not solved, by one, readjusting the self-regulating tide gate floats to allow incrementally more tide water into the marsh on the incoming tide, and two, by slightly increasing the weight of the flapper valve on the conventional tide gates, those are the two ones that let more water out, to make them less sensitive to the outgoing tide. Generally speaking, though, he loved the proposal. He just felt that we should take precautions so we don't dry out the upper portions of the salt marsh. So that was my only request for a recommendation.
That from Mr. Stanky?
Yes, and I can send that to you if you want.
Harrison?
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to second it, but I have the utmost respect for Mr. Stanky. I've worked with him over the years, and he obviously invented these, he patented them, and they were made for Fairfield by him, but I'm not sure if this commission has the power to make sure one person can guide this process. I don't mean this to any disrespect to you or Mr. Stanky. I'm just wondering if we can.
Well, I mean, that was my initial reaction for having a recommendation of approval that seeks out one person. That's why I asked further similarly
I don't know if he's
situated.
available, if he's
Well,
willing
that's-
to do it.
I mean, it's a recommendation of approval, kind of similar to where we were last 2 weeks, where it was a recommendation of approval. It's just a recommendation from this commission. It really is not binding on the applicants, in this case, our own town engineer is not, certainly not on Mr. Stanky, should he be unwilling or unable or whatever the case may be. So
Yeah.
it's a recommendation only, it really has no binding effect. Literally, the town engineer could just, kind of tell us to pound sand or, something a little bit less. So that's why,
But I'm fine with the recommendation. I'll let it go. And I think it would be wise for them to get his guidance on it if it's appropriate, if it's needed. And it sounds like they have engaged.
If I may, I would be reluctant to name a particular individual, but if the Conservation Commission is managing the tidal marsh, so if you want to make a recommendation that they adhere to proper management for water control to allow, the appropriate soak time in the upper marsh, I don't think there's any harm to that recommendation. It's a town project. Just in general, I think, and I don't say this in any way to be an admonishment, but something like that, if he's going to provide testimony, it should be part of the record rather than coming after the close of the public hearing. But since it's a town project, I don't see there's any harm in making that recommendation. I just would be reluctant to name an individual and just recommend that the Conservation Commission be mindful of, which they likely are. And if they wish to seek him out as the individual, that's up to them. But I think a recommendation that they adhere to proper management of the flow of the water to achieve that goal, it's been articulated. I don't think there's any harm in that recommendation.
You've also read in what he had said, and I agree. This is something that probably should have been put on the record by him or by anybody submitting a letter, but that's neither here nor there. I would think if Commissioner Braun, if we can just take out an individual's name and just, as Mr. Wentz said, leave it at that. I think your statements and reading his statement into the record is pretty clear that, and I think everybody knows that he's the person to go to anyways. I think that would be sufficient in its own right, and maybe just make that recommendation.
We have made recommendations before. We did with the paddleball courts. We asked engineering to recommend that they put a sign up suggesting they use the newfangled paddles that make less noise.
No, I know, but it's
I
not,
think there's any harm in making the recommendation.
recommendation is fine,
The
just,
question is how detailed is that?
I would just take out the name. I mean, that would just be
Okay.
my thought.
So the recommendation is,
Mr. White, what did you say?
Maybe
I
seek
can be more
outside-
specific and short if you want. if that's-
Maybe seek outside experts or seek
So
outside.
I want to
counsel.
say what to talk about.
Mr. Wentz, can you repeat what you said? Because that was.
Well, I mean, that's, if you give me that, I can paraphrase it, but I think the ultimate concern here is with the 2 additional tide gates, they don't want the water to exit the marsh too quickly to the detriment of to the marsh, to allow that,
Right, exactly.
in his view, is a proper, without soaking time, if you will, of the peat. So I think, I would hope the Conservation Commission is aware of that and would be cognizant of that, but we're happy to share that with them. I'm just, and we can condense that to a recommendation.
Well, Commissioner Braun, we'll take what you have written, or not what you, but what Mr. Stanky had provided to you. We'll condense it as the
Want me to
recommendation.
Email you a
Yeah,
condensed.
email that to me and then I can make that.
That's perfect.
Commissioner Harrison, is that fair for you? A second?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for the discussion.
And if anybody has questions, I think I can be clearer, but I think we understand what we're doing here. Motion to approve with the conditions stated with this recommendation that outlines the issue that Mr. Stanky had given through Commissioner Braun. Are we clear on that motion?
Yes.
Any further comments, questions from the commission? It's a pretty straightforward application from our own town engineers requesting this, and it seems necessary, so. We'll put this to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your hand, or raise your hand, excuse me. See 7 hands, so it passes unanimously. 251 Commerce Drive, special exception, special permit, and coastal site plan application of Gengris Realty LLC pertaining to additions and alterations to an existing automobile dealership in the Design Industrial District and Commercial Drive District. Mr. White.
Okay, the subject site has an existing 31,000 square foot building that was previously an industrial use and was converted to an automobile dealership in 1998. The applicant, Gengris Realty LLC, seeks to consolidate the former SCAP automobile dealerships on Tungus Hill Road under one roof. The proposal includes an 18,000 square foot addition, 4 additional service bays, and a drop-off service canopy. Service drop-off canopy, I should say. The site is in a flood zone, and there's a net fill of 985 cubic yards proposed here to elevate the proposed floor slab and grade out towards the parking lot. They are proposing a compensatory flood storage basin such that no flood waters will be displaced by that fill. As a result of that presence of that basin, the number of parking spaces is proposed to be reduced from 327 to 175, with a reduction of impervious area of roughly 9% of the area of the site, or 9%. Floodproofing is proposed for the portions of the building that will remain less than 1 foot above the base flood elevation. There's new storefront showroom facade proposed for the building with a signage plan that is in compliance with the regulations, including new wall signs and a monument sign in place of the existing pole sign. The applicant, pursuant to section 13.13P of the regulations, is seeking your permission to allow the existing light poles to remain at a 20-foot height. They're proposing new heads on those existing light poles that will be fully cut off fixtures and dark sky compliant. The applicant is proposing to remove existing pavement within 10 feet of the street, with new landscaping such that vehicle storage will comply with the required 10-foot street line setback. All vehicle deliveries are proposed to take place on site, not in the street. There was a question that arose during the public hearing with respect to shade trees, with 18 being required and 9 called out on the plan. It is recommended that a revised landscaping plan be provided to show those additional trees. There was some discussion about trees along the, I think Commissioner Randolph referred to them as accidental trees, I want to say. But many of those have been removed by the adjacent owner that was recently approved for a scooter dealership. So there's really only one tree. I don't know who owns that tree, but I think it would be, should you approve this project, I think it would be beneficial to receive a revised landscaping plan to show the required 18 shade trees. There are no sensitive coastal resources on or adjacent to the site with the proposed flood storage compensatory basin and water quality improvements. The staff's opinion of this project is consistent with coastal resource policies. The relevant standards for consideration of a special exception are: number one is the location, type, character, size, and use of the building in harmony with and conform to the appropriate and orderly development of the town and neighborhood, and not hinder or discourage the use or value of adjacent property. Number two is the nature and location of the use such that there's adequate access for fire protection. Three, are the streets serving the proposed use adequate to carry prospective traffic, provision made for entering and leaving the property without creating undue hazard. And four, is the proposed use in compliance with the plan of conservation and development. That is all I have, Mr. Chairman.
The landscaping plan condition of approval.
If you see fit to approve it, I would recommend that as a condition. Yes, sir.
Can I have a motion on the item? Commissioner Levy,
Yeah, I'd move to approve with the condition that the 20-foot existing high light poles remain, but they made dark sky compliant. Second condition, that the vehicle deliveries be on site. And condition 3, that a revised landscaping plan provided to show the additional required trees.
thank you. Commissioner Braun,
Second.
second. Commissioner Levy,
Yeah, it's a good plan. It's a vast improvement. It was also well presented before us, and I think it meets all the relevant standards. I mean, what could be more in harmony for Auto Row but another dealership down there? And there's adequate access for fire protection, no problem with traffic, and it's consistent with the plan of conservation. So, I think it'll be a vast improvement.
Commissioner
I
Braun,
agree with everything Commissioner Levy said. I just had one question about the trees. Does this mean that they have to have a landscaping plan with 18 trees on their property? Or can you share trees when you have a, based on our tree or our, what we have in
No,
our?
it would be 18 on their site.
Okay, so they have to add trees, basically.
Right. They're calling out 9.
Okay.
They made reference to some existing trees, but I'm not, in looking at that, some of those trees that were there have been removed. And there's one tree between the two. I'm not sure who owns that particular tree. If it turns out it's on their property, they can count that as a tree.
the landscaping plan will be reviewed by staff and approved if it meets the regulations.
Yeah, that's ultimately up to you, but that would be our preference.
Yeah, Commissioner Levy, is that
Administratively, it's fine.
administratively approved, Commissioner Braun? Okay. Any comments or questions, Commissioner Randolph?
Yes, right now, the current state of the property is in disrepair. Passed it yesterday. It's overgrown. It's been derelict for some time. I think it meets 3 of the 4 relevant standards. It's in compliance with the plan of conservation development. The streets serving it are appropriate. The nature and use of the buildings are acceptable. But I raised this last time. I think the landscape plan might address this, but the character of the building, it's a very, it's not to the same quality as the other dealerships in terms of the quality of materials, the thoughtfulness of the design. And there was Commissioner Pekowski disagreed with me. Let me explain why. The materials used on the facade are reused, 2/3 of the building. The last third of the facade are entirely different, inconsistent with the existing facade. I will support this because it is an improvement over what's currently a decrepit eyesore, but it is not at the same standard as the other buildings there. It cheapens the quality of the other buildings that are on there, and I would hope that the applicant can consider improving on it. I will vote for this because it is an improvement. It's a good business. It's an appropriate use, but the quality of the design is at a lower standard. So I just wanted to add, I'm supporting this, but I wish they would do better.
Further comments, questions? Commissioner Braun?
I was just gonna say, I'm not being an architect. I thought it was a nice design, especially the bamboo portion of it. I mean, what is for Commissioner Randolph, could you just explain?
Yeah,
again? Like,
there's three different materials used on the front. It looks like somebody just designed a building and slammed it on. It's better than what's there now, absolutely, but it is not, somebody didn't look at the entire building. It's not.
Is it that it's got different types of facade? I kind of like that.
Colors, different types.
Okay.
It's not, it was designed by someone who just looked at the one piece, and it's not the same quality as the other dealerships there that are more thoughtfully put together, but it's an improvement. It's definitely an improvement.
I mean, I guess beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but I think they said, if I'm not correct, I'm not mistaken, that they did that differently facade because they wanted to show the distinction between the two brands. It's, or I'm making that up, whatever, but I mean, I can only think of one time where I really, aesthetics really came into play, and that was a very modern building, proposed building down in Southport that just really met. So always a tough thing for when you're dealing with aesthetics.
I'm gonna support it, but.
No, that's fair.
I'm just saying. Be nice. If
Comments, I think, are, if it leads to further improvement, even better. Put this to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. See 7 hands, so it passes unanimously. Pre-application discussion. Zoning regulation amendments, proposal of attorney Christopher Russo, amend section 25.7.10 to consider designation of off-site below market rate units. Good evening.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners, Chris Russo with Russo LLC, 10 Sasko Hill Road, Connecticut. Here on a regulation that is similar to one. I have copies. Do people not have copies?
I got
Is there enough there?
If not, we'll ask you.
All right. So as you probably recall, I was here previously for a proposal for a fee in lieu of affordable units, for sale affordable units. It's something that has been adopted in a number of towns. It was something we went to the Affordable Housing Committee to review. They supported it, but we came here and I know there was a number of concerns with it, issues, and it wasn't approved. And so what we're here now is with another tool mechanism, whatever you would call it, that we see in a lot of other towns in this area, regarding designating units off-site in lieu of affordable units. And I know with the fee in lieu, I think some of the issues, just kind of summarizing, were one, it is difficult to set an amount for a fee in lieu and feel confident and that's the right number to have in lieu of a for sale affordable unit. We tried to be very conservative with the fee to put it towards the higher end and to make sure it wasn't something that the fee was something that it wasn't too low, that it would be like almost like a boon for developers to be able to get the fee. We wanted it to be something significant, but again, it's hard to figure out what that right amount is. And it poses, similar to that, it poses a challenge with, could you take that fee? Could you be certain that you could take that fee and create a unit? Particularly with rising land costs, basically it's hard to predict, would that be enough money to recreate another affordable unit in the future? And then one of the main obvious issues is with the fee, you are not getting the affordable unit right away. And it could be a year down the road, it could be 2, it could be 3, it could be 4. And the commission would have no way necessarily of knowing when that unit would be created. And I don't know, I mean, because I think everybody was here for that presentation. I don't know if I need to rehash what some of the challenges we felt that there were for sale affordable units. Mainly it was the fear that those unit owners would be vulnerable to things such as special assessments that you often find in condo associations. And there's also a challenge for them in that the affordable unit owners, if they invested in their property, if they paid special assessments, they are not able to increase the amount that they sell their unit for. It is restricted on their sale as well. So if there was an improvement to a condo development and you know, everybody paid for it, the people who have the market rate units could up their sale price by 50,000, 75,000. The affordable unit owner could not do that. They're restricted. They cannot raise the price. It's whatever whatever the formula is at the time that they sell, that's what they're restricted to.
Within that 40 years, assuming it's a 40-year deed restricted.
Correct. So looking at those concerns, I went back, looked at other regs, and I had seen this unit in lieu regulation in my prior research, but focused in on that more. Again, this is a tool that is found in other towns. Westport has one. Darien. I'm going to give you.
Just drop it and we'll set it down.
Okay.
Oh, pass it.
You know, where can I just keep? Oh, sorry. So I can. There we go. Okay. So this is Darien's. That it's actually pretty vague regulation.
Just the
But
highlighted one.
it's just the highlighted, and you'll see it shows the affordable housing requirement shall be satisfied by providing below market rate housing units on subject property, providing below market housing market rate housing units elsewhere within the town of Darien. So that's really all it says about that, or paying a fee in lieu, or providing some combination thereof, which actually I thought was an interesting idea. It's not what I've proposed here. And again, this is just a pre-app in this amendment, but Stanford has something similar. And basically the way they do it is if you had like 26 units and the requirement was 10%, comes out to 2.6. What Stanford allows in their regulations and Darien is you would provide 2 units and then you would also pay a fee for the 0.6. So they grow both at the same time. They'll get the units and the fee. And so
Not just rounding up to 3.
they don't just round up to 3. They give you that option that you can do that. So you get both money in and the units. So this right now, and this is why I wanted to come in pre-app. I didn't do a pre-app for the fee in lieu, which was my oversight. I should have done that. But I wanted to come before you and show you this draft, which again is essentially the same language as the fee in lieu, but I'll go through it and show how it differs. So what it says is the commission at its absolute discretion. So if the commission does not feel it's an appropriate project for an offsite for sale BMR units, it's not needed. The commission would rather have the units within that development, they could choose it, but the commission would have the discretion to designate an offsite unit. May allow an applicant to designate for sale below market rate units offsite in lieu of constructing the required below market rate units on site intended for sale only. So it is not available to rentals. It's just available for sale. As says in section 25.7.9. The offsite BMR units shall be located in the same planning area as the site is depicted in figure 36 of the Town of Fairfield Plan of Conservation and Development. So one of the challenges with the unit in lieu when I was trying to draft it and I was starting out is if you're going to do a unit in lieu, where's the unit in lieu in relation to where the development is? And it started to get into, again, is it within 500 feet? Is it within 1,000 feet? What's the radius that you would do? And then I was reading through your POCD, and I found this plan that you see. It's the second page.
Sergeant, can I ask you to interrupt you? Are you able to put that figure 36? Can you find that for us?
Yeah, it's the
please?
second.
Is that from the 2016, the current plan of?
Yeah, it's in your
If you
current
can, don't-
POC
don't
document.
go-
That's the 2016 one we were talking about now.
No,
I think it's in the one that you're talking about.
that's-
I think it's
Well, the one that the draft was, but
the
we.
draft,
I don't see that one in the draft.
right? But that is this map. It's in there as well.
Figure 36 in the draft is the sewer area one. I think
can you just hold it up so we know what you're?
Sure.
that's from the
It's in the
2016.
second page of your. Do you
That's
have
the
that?
11
I have
neighborhoods in the
copies.
2016 one,
The 11 neighborhood.
current one.
Oh, it's a map of the
We'd
11.
have to change the reference
11 neighborhoods.
as a figure number.
No, of course, but that's okay. I
There's
just
no
want to,
figure number I could find. I couldn't find figure 36 in the. Maybe that's.
but what you intend is that one that shows the 11.
11 neighborhoods.
Yeah, okay,
Right.
fine.
And so it did seem like a good, this is, as its name says, these are areas that you're planning for specifically, neighborhoods that you're specifically looking, and you're looking at what each neighborhood has. So it, to me, made sense that the unit be located within that same area. Actually, the Affordable Housing Committee had a different view of that, which I'll share when I get to the end, but so that's where I thought that was at least a good starting point for trying to designate, if it was in Greenfield Hill, if the development was in Greenfield Hill, the offsite unit would have to be somewhere else in Greenfield Hill. And again, this goes back because I remember the first time I came in, which was years ago. There was a lot of concern of would somebody from like say somewhere Southport, there was this concern that it would be in other parts of town. It would not be
Yeah,
in
we're
the
already,
Southport
we're
area.
already concentrated in the southeast portion of town. Do something in the Westport and then on the west side and then throw it into the east side that compounds our issue.
There's gonna be an issue. So this would make sure that didn't happen, that somebody couldn't try to do that. So continuing on with the regulation, this designation shall not be permitted for dwelling units intended for rental. I said that. The applicant may request to designate offsite BMR units, and such designation may be approved by the commission if and when the commission determines in its sole and absolute discretion. So again, really trying to pour on the language that this is totally within the commission's control, that there are circumstances where the designation would be desirable and in the interest of the BMR unit owners. And then the final, in the event that such designation is accepted by the commission, the restriction on the designated offsite BMR unit shall be recorded on the land records prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the first dwelling unit for the onsite project. So again, that goes to the concern with the fee that it could be years before you would see that replacement unit. This would say, this last line makes sure if the new units, if it was a 20 unit project, that when those market rate units were CO'd, you would also have the 2 affordable units at the same exact time. It would not be coming later. So that's the proposal for the amendment. I went and had a pre-application with the Affordable Housing Committee. I don't know if Mark's email was shared with you, but they were supportive of it. To be fair, they were supportive of the fee in lieu as well, but they were also supportive of the units in lieu. And interestingly, which, having done this the third time now with this, I know it's a sensitive issue and we don't want the reg written in such a way that, again, it seems like it's a benefit to the developer, and that's all it is. So really tried to take care, with the geographic area, and making sure, when it's 1-for-1, there's no trade-off. But actually, the housing committee felt that it should have more flexibility. And that's Mark's here, and maybe he'd speak to that. But and on a number of issues, one being location. While they understood what I was saying about trying to keep it, if it's in Southport, keep it in Southport. They felt that the commission should have the discretion, if it was a development in Southport and there was units in Greenfield Hill, that the commission have that leeway to be able to choose, to select in those units, designate those units. The other thing was unit type, because I didn't put that in here. That was something I wanted to kind of get your feedback on before I presented, which is, if the development was supposed to have a 2-bedroom unit, then the offsite unit should also be 2 bedrooms. But
I mean, at least, that was the 2 things that jumped to mind, was value and size, where.
right. And so what the committee said was, well, what about if you were supposed to have a 2-bedroom and you offered 2 1-bedroom units?
Yeah, no, that's what.
And you increase the number of units, which I hadn't really thought about it from that angle, but they said, well, maybe, the commission would want that flexibility. The third was, if it was supposed to be for sale, that the offsite unit would also be for sale. But the housing committee said, well, maybe, again, the commission would want flexibility there, and having it be for rent units. I know the for rent units garner more housing points than the for sale. So that would mean you would gain more points than you would if we had used the units in development. But, the question there is it about getting points or is it about getting units? And so, I didn't put that in here, but that was something that the housing committee brought up, that maybe the commission would want flexibility.
Would this satisfy any, and this might be a question for Mr. Barnhart, would this satisfy the criteria to be 8-30G to go towards either a ratio or a moratorium, since they would be added before the certificate of occupancy, but I don't understand how that works. It would be added when a building permit is issued.
Right, so the restriction would be recorded on the land records, which my understanding, that gets you the point for, that would get you the.
8-30G requires a C of O before it could be counted.
Well, 830G wouldn't be applied, this wouldn't.
No, I
go
mean,
for
to
830G
count, to qualify us as
moratoriums.
counting towards either the moratorium or the 10% ratio that exempts us. So if we allow them to be counted before a C of O is issued, would those units count towards anything in 8-30G? The ratio of affordable housing to total housing or the moratorium?
The offsite unit, theoretical offsite unit, is already an existing unit. So that unit would already be in the 10%, or would be in the total number of housing units within the town already. We're talking about designating an existing unit elsewhere, not in the development to be built. So that offsite unit already exists. It would now be deed restricted, acquired and deed restricted as an affordable unit. And once that occurs, it's eligible to count as an affordable unit towards the housing unit equivalency.
So when
Actually
you're
helps the
building
ratio
permits-
better.
Oh,
Right, because you're essentially shifting it from market rate to affordable.
You're not creating anything.
You're not creating it.
The tie-in is just the timing of when that affordable unit needs to be acquired, either no later than what's proposed here is no later than concurrent with the issuance of the CO of the development, so that you're bringing online an affordable unit at the same time that you're bringing online market rate units in the development that's seeking the offsite unit.
So could we have an example of how this would work with perhaps your project?
Yeah, so I mean, the thought, the example I had in my head was that if there was a 20-unit development and 2 units therefore were required to be affordable, that a applicant could select a property, a 2-family dwelling, and say both units would be restricted. So those would be the two, and they would be for sale. And you would record before the CO on the 20-unit development, you would record a restriction that said this is deed restricted affordable.
So you would have to buy those other 2 units if you didn't own them
Correct.
already.
Correct. And then would have to present it to the commission and say, here's the units, like actually say it's, 50 Post Road or something like that, and show you what the units, show you it's a 2-bedroom, the square footage, everything, and say, we are proposing this as a designated off-site.
And they would be deeded to the town at no cost.
Well, they would still be in ownership of the, whoever was the applicant. But they would be deed restricted.
Okay.
In the 40-year.
The 40-year.
whatever the-
Well, I thought it would be perpetual. Or is that something the?
Well, it could be perpetual.
Okay.
I mean, I guess we can make
Which
it
is,
demand it or condition of.
yeah,
approval.
demand that it be perpetual. So then you never
Developer
have
would
to.
own them and rent them out.
Sorry?
The developer would own them and rent them out. Is that the idea?
Well, it would be for sale. It would just be the sales price would be restricted. I guess you could put in the affordability plan provisions for rental as well. If it ended up being if it ended up being rented.
You would only.
But then the nice thing about that, sorry, Commissioner, just to finish the point, is that in the 20-unit development, the affordable units are 2 of 20. Whereas in the 2-family, they are 2 of 2. And there's a lot more control over that property than there would be in the original development.
I see.
Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, I'm
Questions?
trying to get my head around the practicality of doing this. I mean, we have absolute discretion as to whether or not to accept it.
Mhm.
And let's say we make that a condition even at the time of the issuance of the building permit. It means, can you imagine convincing one of your clients, I want you to buy this piece of property before we go before the commission, so you need to own it, or you've got it contractually locked up on the hope that maybe the commission will accept that in lieu of 2 units. I mean.
Yeah, well, and I think that's
Definitely work.
that's the developer's risk. I mean, and that's, that's the developer to do that. And that's why I do the timing wise, it would be, the restriction would be placed on it before you got the CO. So if the commission said, no, we're not gonna take the units in lieu, those units wouldn't be restricted, so they could basically resell them or they could keep it, or they could resell it for market. So it wouldn't be, timing wise, I don't think it would work that you would put it on, the restriction on prior.
But you're still gonna need it lined up before you come to us. And
Developer's risk. I don't think anybody's gonna feel,
It could be just under contract.
sorry,
It could be under contract.
it could be under contract.
Zoning contingency.
Correct.
But before we approve it.
Commissioner Randolph's next.
would you have
Commissioner
to-
Braun,
You could be under you could be a contract purchaser of it.
go ahead if you still have more.
And then just
Commissioner
another
Randolph.
question I had was, in terms of, this whole idea, I mean, the same planning area, could it also, is there any reason it has to be restricted to, sales unit? Or could it be that we would have discretion that you would designate this to the town, which might then own it and use it as a rental unit, which may be better than, there've been problems with the sales units.
Well, there's certainly flexibility we could.
So that would be the discretion to either, it be transferred as a for sale unit to the applicant, or it could be transferred to the town or the Affordable Housing Commission for administration as a rental unit in perpetuity.
Yeah, that's an option that could go in. Yeah.
I do think that's an option though, making that transfer to the town.
You have to put it in
I
there.
think you could, yeah. I think.
I'm just curious, I mean, I wasn't thinking along that line. I'm sorry, Commissioner Randolph, but if you think from you coming from the developer side that the developer might be willing to do that, transfer to the town.
Yeah, I mean,
Property.
it's not something, I'll have to look and see if I've seen that. No, it's not, in the ones I've seen, I have not, but I can look back at it.
Well,
and
no,
see.
obviously this is just what is this? Pre-app, so I mean, you're not bound to anything, it's just
Right.
doing our own ideas, but I was just.
It's something certainly I can explore.
Okay, that would be interesting. Commissioner Randolph.
You want to finish on that?
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just, or it
Thank you.
could be that the option, it would provide for an option. I mean, let's say you buy a house for 300,000, a two-family.
Mhm.
The affordable price might be 150, 200,000. The town might have an option of a right of first refusal, because your developer's going to want something for it. But the town might have an option of right of first refusal at that price in lieu of a for sale unit. There's a possibility.
Commissioner Randolph and Harrison.
Thank you for your thoughtful comments. I think the notion of having another tool at our disposal is a good one, and this seems to be more developed than the example you gave us from Canaan.
Darian.
So I think some of the things you've addressed are good and need to be further clarification. I think the limiting this to a for sale unit versus a rental unit is a constraint that may not be required because we're trying to get more affordability. So if it's either a rental unit or a for sale unit, I think you accomplish the same thing. I think keeping it in the planning area, I think you could have a little more discretion, say, in or in proximity to the planning area, because putting it in the planning area might create some artificial
You could say a budding. You could say planning area or
abutting
planning area.
proximity,
In
which
proximity.
is open to interpretation. That's my suggestion, because if you put it a hard line in there, you're gonna be making a difficult problem, even, adding difficulty to it.
Right.
I think your comment about the unit size mix, that needs some clarification. Because, we don't want to see a complex with 3 bedrooms, and then all of a sudden somebody puts studios in. So the size and value, as Commissioner Noonan suggested, is that needs some details to it. I guess one thing that's troubling about this is that if you're converting an existing unit, when you say designate, I would rather see the word construct in there. To require the developer to add an incremental unit of affordable housing. And so back to the practicality of this, I think one scenario might be somebody would find a property on an oversized lot, tear it down and put in 4 units of affordable or two of affordable, effectively it would encourage scalable 830Gs, missing middle housing. But to take one property offline and then turn it into an affordable unit, I'm not sure if that, we're continuing to limit the housing supply. So that's one issue, and this is going to be very difficult to implement. I think it's a good tool if you guys could use it. We want to give you one, but I think the notion of taking one unit offline, a market rate unit offline, and then converting it to affordable is going to be challenging, and it's also going to, we're not going to net increase the housing and community. So I'm throwing out a problem.
Yeah, no,
not
that's
necessarily a solution. So
that's one more. Yeah.
All right. I mean, I would just, because this is a pre-app, I think we should just go down the line with any further comments, suggestions, edits, thoughts, just so we can do what this is kind of required of, not required, but requested of us to give our thoughts in this pre-app. So I'll start all the way to my left and work down. If you haven't, if you've already said your piece, that's fine. But if there's additional thoughts, just put them out there for the applicant.
So I was just looking at Mr. Barnhart's memo.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Harrison, I skipped you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I'm sorry.
No problem. That'll be super quick. I agree a lot with what Commissioner Randolph said. I think we do need to get more specific with size and value. I think this is a good start. Just wordsmithing, I don't think you need the word absolute in front of discretion. Discretion is discretion. I don't think you need to modify that or add
Lawyers
that.
pouring it on.
Yeah.
And it's plan of conservation development, not plan of conservation of development. That's, so I would fix that too.
Okay.
But again, this is a good start. I think it is good to have another tool in our toolbox, but I think we have to think about this more. Again, thank you for the discussion. Thanks for being here
Oh,
tonight.
absolutely. Thank you.
Commissioner Braun.
And you should also identify that this figure 36 is on page 45 of the 2016 P O C D, because that, I don't think that map is in the the draft we're looking
It's in
at. now.
appendix A of the
Is it in the
draft. Yeah.
appendix?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's where I
So
found,
maybe
yeah.
identify, you know,
Yeah.
I didn't see that there.
It might
And
just be, might not have been scrubbed off of the appendix, but I'll
So-
look at it.
I have questions about Mr. Barnhart's memo, and I don't know if I should address them to him or to you. Couple questions. So the Affordable Housing Committee liked it, but they thought certain changes should be made, and they expected that the units would be offered and deeded to the town, a land trust, or similar authority that would permanently preserve those units as affordable, as opposed to the 40-year term that's in our inclusionary zoning. That is not in here.
Yeah, well, that, and then, yeah, so
That's
that,
something they
that was just suggested. I mean, it can still, even if it's in a private party, can still be perpetual.
Yeah.
It's just you know, the thing you know, and probably talk to Mark and Jim more about this is, you know, whether the town would want the unit, something that manage and
So
maybe just leave it in private parties.
Well,
But
that could
it's,
be-
but it's perpetual, so it's the
perhaps
same.
that could be one of the things that could be made flexible. It could.
Right.
it could continue to be owned by the, or somebody else, or they could sell it, or it could be to the town. I have a question for Mr. Barnhart. Is there any pro or con to the town owning it versus the applicant owning it if it's perpetual? And do we care if it's perpetual or not? I would prefer it perpetual.
Certainly care if it's perpetual.
Mark, come on up, sorry, if you don't mind.
I'm worried about 8-30G and getting our ratio up there.
We certainly care that it would be in perpetuity versus a 40-year restriction. Obviously, longer is better, and something that's permanently affordable would be than temporarily affordable. So the fact if it were deeded to the town or some other entity like the town, a land trust, if there were one, a housing authority, some other entity, it could be private ownership with a restriction in place, but that would be beneficial and something that would be, I think, desirous of the town as a whole.
So perpetual is more important than who owns it.
Yes.
Okay. And then having them sooner rather than later. And well, some of them could be newly built, I suppose, if, as Commissioner Randolph said, why limit it to just something that already exists?
It's a good point. Could be constructed. We were thinking of leveraging existing housing stock, purchasing an existing two-family or something like that, needing it down, but it could be constructed.
I don't imagine this is going to happen very often, you know. So if we qualify an offsite unit that's being built instead of already exists, and we qualify it after the permit is issued, but maybe a year before the C of O is issued, does that hurt us with our ratio or our moratorium or anything? And we're counting it, but the state won't count it until it gets a C of O, right?
Well, if it's being constructed, you have to have the CO, but the way the statute reads is it's newly deed restricted or newly constructed after July 1, 1990. So if it's newly constructed, you do need the certificate of occupancy, but if it's newly deed restricted, all you need is the restrictive covenants and it becomes affordable at that point in time.
I didn't know
That's
that.
why I'm suggesting that it might be beneficial to have existing housing stock. I agree with you. It's probably not going to be utilized all that often. Perhaps it should not be utilized all that often. I think the commission has already stated its desire, as has the Affordable Housing Committee, to have affordable units as part of an overall fixed income development, as part of a development. But we've talked about issues in particular cases where it might be beneficial to have them located offsite.
So just so I understand this, so if they're being newly constructed, somebody finds an oversized lot and they build a duplex for the 2 units they need, by allowing them to be added on restricting the deed or conveying it, but before a certificate of occupancy is issued, that would still qualify to be counted as affordable housing under 8-30G? I thought it had to be deed restricted and a certificate of occupancy.
Correct.
Okay.
For the new one, yeah,
Okay.
for the new, yeah.
And again, it's probably like not gonna happen very often. So it's not like it's gonna hurt us. It just won't help us until you get the C of O. Okay, and then, so that's the timing. And then the where. Okay, so if this development was gonna go in, according to the way you're drafting, you'd have to pick some duplexes or whatever in Southport, in that,
Right.
in that area, yeah. Okay, and if you made it an adjacent area, it could be in the center, the shore area, Mill Plain, or Greenfield Hill. But it couldn't be in Tungus Hill, so.
Well, yeah, that's, yeah.
Okay. And then one last question that relates to the Affordable Housing Committee recommendations. They were saying, instead of strictly limited to geographic, could that be part of a number of criteria to determine whether it's comparable and in the public interest? What would be the other criteria then? Things that we've been talking about?
Several of the commissioners have talked about it before: unit type, unit size, whether it's
Okay.
for sale, rental. So I think there are a host of things that you would look at to determine whether or not what is on offer is comparable to what is being lost as
Do
part
we
of
get
the
more points whether
You do get more points for
if
rental.
it's rental than sale?
Yes.
We care, aside from that.
There may be circumstances in the future where there may be a greater need for rental units than ownership units. I don't know.
So that flexibility would be
So
useful.
to have that flexibility might be beneficial for the
Okay.
commission to exercise.
Thank you very much.
Let's go down the line. Oh,
Just one additional point, following up on Commissioner Randolph's point. We don't want to just be trading one affordable unit for another, even with the deed restriction. My sense is that when the developer was determining a unit, part of our discretion would be, what is the market rate as opposed to the affordable rate? So if you bring us a market rate unit, which is $3,000 a month, and the affordable rate's going to be $1,500, well, that's a gain. But one that's already renting at $1,500, to make it deed restricted at $1,500, I think in my discretion, I might say, what do we get out of this? So that's just might be one way to deal with the one consideration for whether or not you're building a new unit or simply designating the existing market unit.
Yeah, just one more question. I know I have my last comment, but what happens if these additional units don't exist in the planning area or one adjacent? Like, because the reality is there's not a massive housing stock in Fairfield or elsewhere. I mean, that's reality.
Well, so
And they get gobbled up really
are
quickly.
you talking about we could either construct them, or if it wasn't available, then, I mean, you just don't have it as an option.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you found a place that, again, was a two-family and it looked like it was appropriate site, then you would just have this option to be able to present it to you and say, we found, we have this property, we found this property, we think it's an appropriate offsite unit.
I'll just go down the line. At the very least, if you're gonna present the regulation, I would include for sale and for rent, just for our consideration. We can always scale it back, but I'm leaning towards the idea that this is in line with what I think we were concerned about. At least my predominant concern was at your last one with the fee in lieu was you're not getting a unit. This solves that, and I'd be curious to see how this works. And I don't think I need to necessarily do an incremental do for sale first and then open it up. I'm okay. I would be comfortable, at least at this point, doing for sale and for rental. So I would think if you're gonna do the application for a regulation amendment, I would do both. We scale it back, but at least put that in there for our consideration. Yeah, something needs to be, not the shall be located in the same area. I would certainly maybe either put that as a preference. Maybe Commissioner Randolph's approximate area is fine. I think the commission, and I don't foresee this changing, is well aware of where our concentration of affordable housing is and the desire to expand it outside of that concentration area. So I think either saying something approximate area or preferences.
Would you still want this as a reference, and then
Well,
you could go approximate from?
I think we reference it we have a new draft. I think it is referenced in the new draft. So it just needs to make sure we lock it up. That could be fine, I guess, but I would certainly not say, I would certainly not make it mandatory.
Mandatory.
Give us, because there may be a chance where you have a thing in Southport and things in Greenfield Hill or the beach area where it's like, it's, you know, it's honestly, there could be a chance that there is such a great location in the Stratfield Southeast area that we're just like, well, actually, this works great for whatever reason. I can't think of an example, but maybe there is one out there. Heck, maybe you decide to give us, instead of potentially 2 units, you say, well, actually, we got a 4-unit thing in Stratfield area, we'll give you that. So, I mean, so that brings me to the next part, similar or greater value than what the other units would be, similar or greater size, either go by bedrooms or by rooms, but since I don't think we can take you're gonna do 2-bedroom apartments, and instead you're gonna give us just one bedroom. It would have to be.
Yeah, I mean,
Something
the
comparable.
flexibility that the Affordable Housing Committee was, did the commission want the flexibility to say it could go from a 2-bedroom to 2 units, studio units, to
Yes,
1-bedroom units?
I would, something of similar, it can be, in my view at least, my humble opinion, something that's the offsite units are equivalent size, equivalent or greater size, or equivalent greater market, but it doesn't have to be a 1-for-1 unit. It could be, as you just said, 2 1-bedroom and then 2 studios.
Studios, right.
But that, in my
You
vibe,
can break it down, you can't go back, like you couldn't do 2 units, like if you had 2 single bedrooms, you couldn't go up to 2, but you can go down.
I would have to be, I'd be curious how the points work out with that, because
I mean, like you can go from 2 units to 1, you couldn't do 2 studio units up to 1 2-bedroom unit.
well, I'd be curious, how does that affect with the points and stuff?
Counts units and
Units.
rental versus sale. It doesn't care about bedroom count.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so yeah, increasing the units then, but I mean, the idea is increasing the stock, increasing the points, getting closer to moratorium. That would be kind of the preference area, and I'm not, and I mean, for me, the designation versus construction, I mean, to me, it's, even if you kept the word designation, you can still construct something and designate it. That doesn't, I don't see that kind of, I don't see that that distinction really. It's just designating it, whether it's new construction or whether it's existing. That to me is kind of a differentiate, to me, in my mind, with the designation is a differentiation without a meaning to me. It's just whatever it is, new construction or existing, that would be what it is. But yeah, this is, we may very well have said this at our last conversation. This is where at least my preference would be heading to. So, I mean, with everything else I said in there, my only other thought would be if and when you present this regulation, I guess be as broad as you can. So if we need to, we can always scale it back.
Yep.
As opposed to expanding it out.
Mhm.
That might just be a tactic on your end to help us. And you can say that to us point blank, this is what I was doing, you know, so we can always go in the footprint of the regulation.
Can I ask a clarifying question, Mr. Chairman? Is the initial role of an offsite unit is intended for projects, newly built projects that are to be a for sale product? So are you suggesting that the offsite unit either be for sale or for rental, which is, I understand what you want, flexibility in the provision of the affordable unit that may be offsite, could be either a for sale or for rental unit. But what this is targeting is that option is only available for developments that are building a for sale product. We're not looking to create offsite units for a project that's newly built that's a rental product. So that flexibility for rental or for sale should be in the delivery of the offsite unit. But the option should only be available for projects that are developing a for sale unit.
Well, I guess
If that made any
I
sense.
had
It was
the mind-
available for 250 peak, for example, it would be available for the development that was approved at 250 Pequot Avenue, but it would not be available for something like the Anchorage.
Correct.
Well, that's an interesting, I mean, I had in mind, no, I had it as.
That's what I'm at, that's why
No,
I'm
that's
at.
fine. I had it in mind for that, the new project could be either for sale or for rent. I would think though that the offsite units would either need to match what the project is gonna do, or if rental is a higher points than sale, then it could always, regardless of whether the project is for sale or for rent, the offsite unit could be for rent because it gives the highest points. Does that make sense?
I got you.
Made sense to me, but I
It
don't.
makes sense to
know.
me too. I got.
I have a question. Can I ask you a question?
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Are you saying that the development could be for rent or sale, or just the new development would be for sale?
I think if I could, because I think if it was the development at 250 Pequot Avenue, for example, they could designate units offsite that would either be for sale or for rental.
Mhm.
But it would not be available to a rental property like the Anchorage.
Well, I mean, I was under the impression that the Affordable Housing Committee wanted this to be also applied for projects that were for rent.
I don't think so. I don't think so, no.
Okay.
No.
Just that as Mr. Wen had just indicated, give the commission the option of designating the offsite units as either.
Okay, well, I guess that leads me to my next, question, because I had thought when I heard, I had misunderstood. I thought it was that Affordable Housing Committee wanted the flexibility, not just for sale projects, but for rental projects. Is there a reason why we wouldn't do it for rental projects?
To be honest, we didn't really talk about that.
Okay, fair enough. Well, if that's simply the answer, then so be it. I would think unless there's a reason why not, and I can't think of it off the top of my head, I would have it for the projects being for sale. The project at issue being for sale or for rent, well, and or for rental. Or rental, whichever. I don't think, unless there's a reason not to, and I just can't think of it, that there is or isn't a reason off the top of my head, I would be okay with both.
If you want to promote.
If there's a reason, Miss Harrigan, excuse me.
I think the larger problem has come in where we've had the ownership developments that have the inclusionary requirement. I think the inclusionary requirement as applied to folks who are building rental properties, that has not been problematic to fulfill.
Okay.
So I think this is a regulation seeking a solution to a problem that exists. And I don't think the problem exists with the production of multifamily rental developments.
That's fair in its own right then. Okay. And leaving it as the for sale for projects, that's fine, because as Ms. Harrigan said.
Two more questions.
Go ahead, and then we're gonna keep going because we need to.
The fee in lieu, that could be done in any instance. We don't.
We don't do field
You
level.
don't permit a fee in
do
lieu.
Hmm?
You don't permit a fee in lieu.
I thought we did.
No, we denied that.
Oh.
I can bring it back.
We didn't like that.
We're not done a fee in lieu?
That was the Pequot one.
Okay, never mind. I mean, in general, we do not allow a fee in lieu of our inclusionary zoning.
You were thinking of open space maybe, but not
Okay,
for
okay.
affordable housing.
And then, is there a difference between moratorium is one metric we look at for 8-3G. The other is the overall ratio of affordable housing that qualifies under 8-3G versus compared to the total housing stock. In terms of these comparable size units, which does it affect both moratorium and the overall ratio differently? Because you get points for the moratorium based on the size, but for the ratio, is our ratio getting better or worse? Does it matter?
It would not have any effect.
So just the quantity of,
The moratorium points are more restrictive.
okay,
Any unit that you place that's deed restricted for any length of time counts towards your overall inventory.
and that's important too, because we get judged on that in court.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Corsillo, anything further?
I think it's mostly been said at this point. I think,
Let's give your opinion so it gives us.
yeah, no,
gives
I
sense.
think this is generally speaking, I think more flexibility is better, whether it's on allowing the offsite units to be rental or for sale. And would like to hear the town's opinion before this comes, if this becomes an actual application on whether they would be open to having the units transferred over to them.
Or to the housing authority.
Or to the, well, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perpetual or to the transfer to the housing authority would be
great, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be, I'd like to see the units be permanently affordable and or deeded to the town if the town wants to take that on. So I'd like to get that opinion. I think the one place where having some flexibility can be a bit problematic is with the location. I think if we're too vague, it creates so much, it may create so much uncertainty with developers that we may actually be discouraging some developments that could get us housing. Because if they're going to be taking such a risk, they don't know where we want to see the development happening. You know, are they really going to go through all the trouble? If it's a real risk that they're not going to have, you know, developers willing to take on some risk. Every development is risk, but I think we need to provide some guidance on where we want to see these units rather than just, you know, vague word like proximate or just nothing at all. That's the one place where I think a little bit more specificity would be useful.
Commissioner Randolph?
This is I think going to be a useful tool. I think we've covered a lot of the comments, just a specific markup. I would say after the first BMR in there says units off-site. I think the addition of the language which has already been discussed, similar in size and or market value. First line, it says, I'll get back to the other one. And then in terms of the proximity, I think if we could specify distance perhaps, but where it says BMR units shall be located, I would say within 500 feet of the boundaries as depicted in 36. This designation shall, and I'd strike the word not, shall be permitted for dwelling units intended for rental. I think we've agreed that rental is a good solution. And then one thing we hadn't really discussed, I think the restriction to say that it needs to be recorded part of the issuance of C of O, that seems a little bit onerous. So I'd offer some flexibility on when that C of O would basically within a period of time, maybe 6 months or a year, just to give the developer some flexibility because this is going to be tricky to implement. And I don't want to put a constraint on it that's too difficult. Now, the bigger and more substantive question is I'm opposed to taking existing stock and converting it to affordable. So it says may allow the applicant to, I think we need the word construct in there. That's my request. And something that you should consider rather than designate. I think if we take units offline and then designate them as affordable, it's going to not help the affordable housing issue. Because you'll be constraining the supply and driving up the cost of the existing housing. Doesn't get you anymore. But thoughtful, detailed, big improvement over what you were looking at from the other towns. So.
Mr. Siebert? Anything further? I mean,
No, I really have nothing further. I think the designation between rental and is adequate. So I really have nothing further.
that's fine. I mean, I've said a lot, so no worries. Commissioner Collins, anything further?
To have the opportunity for rental and purchase, I think was really kind of the.
Okay. Thank you. All set.
Thank you. Appreciate all the feedback. We'll be back to you soon.
Going to our public hearing items, 3685 Black Rock Church. Special exception application of Black Rock Church for a 958 square foot addition to existing gathering room. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Bill Fitzpatrick, attorney in Fairfield, from Russo and Mauricio, with offices at 10 Sasko Hill Road. Here tonight representing Black Rock Church. It's located at 3685 Black Rock Turnpike. This property is located in the residence AA zone. The church is a permitted use in the residence AA zone by a special exception approval. The church is located on a 13.27 acre parcel. The minimum lot area requirement in the residence AA zone is 1 acre. Church has been located at 3685 Black Rock Turnpike for over 50 years. The church underwent a significant renovation and addition in 2012. The application before the commission tonight is a modest addition of 958 square feet to the existing gathering room. Since the proposal here is new construction or an existing special exception use, public hearing before the commission is required, despite the fact that the proposed addition is less than 1,000 square feet. Primary uses of the expanded gathering room will be for funeral and wedding services. The church accommodates approximately 25 funeral services and 10 wedding services a year. The worship center, the primary church center, contains 938 seats, and as such is not the optimal size and atmosphere for most funerals or weddings. It just dwarfs them. The expanded gathering room will allow the church to accommodate larger funeral services and wedding services. It should be noted that the use of the gathering room for funerals and wedding services will never take place on Sundays. That can be made a condition of approval if the commission so desires, and as such will never conflict with the use of the worship center. The presentation tonight will include George Wiles, the church architect, and I will then conclude addressing the relevant regulatory criteria. I should note that Walter Jobst, the professional engineer who designed the underground stormwater detention system, and Jeremy Taylor, the church executive director, are here with me tonight and available for any questions. At this point, I'd like to introduce Mr. George Wiles, the principal of Wiles Architects of Milford, Connecticut. George.
Attorney Fitzpatrick, quickly though, what
Yes.
was that suggested or proposed condition of approval was what?
Was that you could dictate that the use of the gathering room for wedding and funeral services would never take place on Sundays.
But the use of the gathering room is not just this new, I'll say 1,000 square foot, it's the existing.
Yeah, the
room plus
existing
this.
is approximately, it's about 1,800 square feet now. We're adding more or less 50%, 958 square feet. And we're looking right now, the present number of occupants generally is like 90, and we're looking to be able to get to 140 or 150 just to accommodate a larger service.
But it's not just using this addition. The condition of approval is not just for this addition, it's for the
For the
addition,
expanded gathering room.
for the addition plus the room that it's adding on to.
I'm sorry, yes,
No,
that's
that's fine. I just want to make sure I understood. Thank you.
Can I just ask a clarification?
Sure.
question? I thought you said there were 938 seats. I must have
there
missed.
are in the worship center, the main.
Oh, I was gonna say, that's a pretty big wedding.
No, that's why weddings and funerals there don't make sense. It's just too huge a
Oh,
room.
this is to allow them in the gathering place instead of in the reception. Okay.
I mean, the gathering, the worship center doesn't even have a center aisle. It just,
Okay.
this is a more appropriate room.
Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, and just by way of clarification, I assume they'd still be able to use the room on Sundays, but just not for weddings and funerals. is the condition.
Yes, that's correct.
Because they may have a meeting there.
That's correct.
That's fine.
Thank you. My name is George Wiles, Wiles Architects. Our offices are located at 257 Naugatuck Avenue, Milford, Connecticut. I just want to touch on the architecture. We're expanding the building approximately with an addition that's 29 by 29. And in addition to that, we'll be replicating all the existing materials that are there now, which are exterior brick veneer with a steep pitch roof. The addition is located in the upper northwest corner of the structure. This is the worship center, which is mentioned the 900 seats. This is the existing gathering room. The existing gathering room has a small fireplace at this end. And the idea of the gathering room is for a more intimate worship experience and also for funerals and weddings. We're going to expand that, which allows us to have several seating arrangements with a center aisle. There are no fixed seats in the gathering room, whereas in the worship center, the seats are fixed. We're going to add a small vestibule that will allow us to have entrance to the small addition. The exterior materials, as I mentioned, are going to be exactly the same. When we're done, we hope that you won't even know the difference that it's been added on to. We are going to remove the existing exterior wall that'll be demolished, and we'll extend it. I don't know if we have the image of the interior. I know I sent that late.
We've got it. I just have
Okay.
to switch over.
And just when you just get a flavor of what, this is the existing interior gathering room. As you can see, the seats are not fixed, center aisle, fireplace at the end. We're adding on at the other end. We'll replicate the framing with heavy timber, which gives that warm feeling and more intimate versus the large worship space. I think that's about it. The only thing I can touch on is to take Walter Jobs' thunder is that there'll be a small modification of the storm system. We just have to get around the addition with the storm drainage, which is a very small relocation of some catch basins. And that's essentially it. Any questions on the addition? I'd be more than happy to answer.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, could you tell us the orientation, if you're looking from Black Rock Turnpike, is it the left, the right?
Oh, you don't want to be on there.
I have one separate question. So would the room, would the addition be used at the same time as the services, or the services only on Sundays?
The worship center is used on Sundays. This room would not be used on Sunday.
So you would not be adding to the traffic congestion, because that's what one of the neighbors was talking
If I
about.
can address that letter in my.
I'll let you
conclusion-
Would you have them come up and?
A-zone.
25 feet.
Can you just identify yourself? Can you identify yourself for the
Oh,
record?
I'm sorry. Walt Joe,
Thank you.
professional engineer, surveyor.
Would you have him? come up?
A-zone setback side yard,
Sir, come on up,
Double A.
sir.
double A.
Yes, come on up. So I can just,
Excuse me, I'm out of practice. Pulled me out of retirement to do this. It's the 1 acre zone, side yard setback, so
25 feet.
25 feet. We're several hundred feet.
Thank you. And then, have you communicated this to the neighbors? Have you formally notified them?
No, this is a less than 1,000-foot addition to a 70,000 square foot building.
Sure. No, I understand you may not have a legal requirement to, but out of courtesy as a good neighbor, that's something you would consider.
It's obviously
Surprises.
published in the newspaper, public notice. It did not, in my opinion, remotely reach the kind of scope that I would ordinarily contact neighbors.
Yeah, I understand the legal requirement.
No, not legal, even just practical. I would never do so on 1,000 square feet on a 70,000 square foot building. So was it 1.5%? Just my practice.
Receiver, do you have something?
Can I conclude, Mr. Chairman?
Some of us have more
With-
questions,
with
so.
What was previously said, I'm good.
Okay, that's fine. I just thought you had a question. Commissioner Harrison.
I have a question, just going back to the neighbor's email. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
could I just finish? Or do you want to do that during rebuttal, or do you want to do that now?
It's in my conclusion.
Okay, then I'll put questions in.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd now like to conclude by addressing the relevant criteria set forth in the zoning regulations. The relevant section is section 27.4. 27.4.1 is satisfied since the proposed addition is modest in size. The design of the addition is consistent with the architectural style of the existing building, and the use of the addition is consistent with the existing church use. 27.4.3 is satisfied here where there is no relevant increase in traffic and the existing parking count on site is being maintained. It should be noted that the existing number of parking spaces on site is 482 spaces, while the required parking on site is 220 spaces. To reiterate, the existing parking is more than twice the parking required under the zoning regulations. The relevant setbacks set forth in section 5 of the zoning regulations are satisfied, as are the lot coverage and floor area ratio limitations set forth in section 5.2.5. In sum, the relevant zoning criteria are fully satisfied. The zoning file contains correspondence from the Town of Fairfield Engineering Department confirming that the proposed underground stormwater system satisfies the town requirements. The zoning file also contains an email from a property owner on the other side of Black Rock Turnpike objecting to this application. The correspondence states that the P&Z approval in 2011 states that no further additions will be allowed. That's not accurate. I will hand out a copy of that 2011 approval. The P&Z approval in 2011 contains no limitation or prohibition against future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Additions to the church. In addition, the best evidence of this fact is the fact that the P&Z approved an addition, second floor offices in 2018. It should also be noted that the primary complaint in the email is Sunday traffic. There will be no funeral or wedding services on Sundays. This application will have zero effect on existing Sunday traffic. Basically, this small addition satisfies the church need in a manner consistent with the relevant town regulations. For the reasons outlined, I request the application be approved. Mr. Wiles, the project architect, Mr. Choate, the project engineer, Mr. Taylor, the church executive director, and I will be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Harrison, did you have
Yeah, I
anything
think,
further?
no, Attorney Fitzpatrick, you
Yes.
laid my, you laid my question about the stipulation that was in the 2011 case, and I think this is a very thoughtful design. And I think it's a modest addition to the church, so I don't have any issues with it, but that was my question.
Commissioner Braun.
Two questions. It probably isn't relevant since you have ample parking. There was another thing in the letter about another business using the parking lot or.
They have a garage on site. They plow their own snow
Uh-huh.
and they have
Oh,
trucks
they use-
parked
the church
there.
uses it.
It's the church's
Okay,
own
okay,
trucks for snow
Yeah,
plowing.
okay.
They do not have a business
Okay.
occupying their garage.
So, and the increase in impervious surface would be exactly this, pretty much the square foot addition, because you're not adding parking or.
It's actually impervious already.
Oh, it is?
There's parking spaces there.
Oh, so it's taking up some parking that it
Yeah,
doesn't need anyway.
That we have
Okay.
managed to
So
find
no
out.
addition of impervious surface, really.
No,
Okay, great.
no,
Thank you.
identical.
Okay.
They use this room as overflow for other services?
You know what I mean?
Only on Easter.
Only on
Fair enough. Christmas, maybe.
Anything further?
Thank you very much for your time and attention.
That includes. Hold on, let me just make sure, go through public comments.
You're very anxious.
Any member of the public who's joining us in person wish to be heard on this item, 3685 Black Rock Turnpike? Right there, not you. They found those, you got the people in the back?
Yes, they're.
That's fine, I just want to make sure. Is there any member of the public joining us remotely that wishes to be heard on this application? Anybody signed up in the chat, Ms. Harrigan? Anybody you see online?
They have not expressed that they'd like to speak.
Any member of the public joining us remotely or by phone wish to be heard? You know, is it still *6 to unmute yourself by phone? Do we have any idea?
That was.
That was WebEx, I know, yeah, I have no idea. Any member of the public wish to be heard on this application? Not hearing anything, so I'll close the public comment portion and.
Thank you very much.
So I'll close the hearing on this application. We'll go to 1073 North Benson Road. Special exception application of Fairfield College Preparatory School for additions of alterations for arts and athletics in the building zone.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, my name is John Fallon. I'm here this evening representing the Fairfield College Preparatory School. I apologize for my very thin look tonight. I will only leave it that I blame my grandchildren in the swimming pool, and the rest of the story we don't need to hear. Anyway, good evening, and as I said, I'm representing the prep, which you are familiar with. The application, which you'll hear about tonight, is for an addition to our current facilities to be constructed on the footprint of the existing Brissett Gymnasium. As you will also hear, it's going to provide significant enhancements to the school's arts and athletic programs that are currently offered there. With me tonight is Ms. Katie Hurley, who is our Assistant Vice President and Director of Facilities Management. Also, and you'll be hearing from both of them, is Brian Phillips, our Senior Engineer on the project from Langdon Engineering, who has appeared before you before, and Ms. Caitlin Chapin of Newman Architects, who will give you an overview of the architectural design. The proposed addition is, as you can see, 2 stories. It constitutes 32,680 square feet of additional space. And as you will also see and hear about tonight, briefly, it will accommodate a 200-seat arts and media, black box theater, and an 800-seat 3-court basketball gymnasium, a weight training and ERG, which is a rowing room, locker rooms, and coaches' rooms. These facilities will, as I said, significantly enhance the flexibility to offer expanded arts and athletic programs for which our current space is either inadequate or non-existent. You'll also note that as part of the overall plans, there's going to be a small interior renovation to the third floor of the existing Birchman's Hall and the ground floor of Arupee Hall. Programs that are currently held there will move to the new addition, and that will therefore create more space for classrooms within the existing footprint of the school, which we need. Before I introduce Brian and Caitlin, a few words about parking. In order to accommodate the new addition, there will be a net reduction of approximately 20 parking spaces. We still are well in excess of the parking requirements campus-wide. The existing parking lot will be repaved and site lighting added with cutoff fixtures that you'll hear about that meet the dark sky requirements of section 28.11.4 of the regulations. The modest reduction in parking that I referenced before will not impact any off-site considerations. Some faculty members will be assigned to the senior lower lot adjacent to prep, and we park all of our students and will continue to do so generally beyond the senior lot at Dolan Commons, and they walk to class, and that's what they're going to continue to do. During construction, any further temporary disruption of the parking will be accommodated by providing additional student parking at Dolan. The proposed construction will not occasion any change in our regular traffic flow for school buses and drop-offs, and they will continue to load and unload on Loyola Drive, as is currently the case. During the construction, the prep will utilize the University Fieldhouse facilities for their sports. Currently, Prep's varsity basketball games are already played there. Although, as you can see and know, the addition located where it is has little or no visibility off campus. We did, prior to filing the application, send letters and emails to our neighbors on North Benson Road and Dill Road to give them background and advise them on the project. We received no adverse comments or inquiries beyond the information we supplied them before we actually started this process. There was a code enforcement meeting that was held on May 21, 2024. And all comments received at that time have been addressed in the plans that are before you tonight. So at this point in time, I'd like to call on Mr. Brian Phillips, who's a professional engineer, senior project manager for Langen Engineering. Brian will, with the exhibits in hand, briefly review with you our existing site, the proposed site plan, and the drainage design for this particular proposal. Brian.
Thank you very much. Quick question. Were these distributed? I didn't see them in the download. Or what, these distributed? I didn't see them.
These are part of the plan set that you have.
When were
I'm
they?
having trouble hearing
What-
people.
I'm just asking when these were distributed.
The link to the agenda that was sent out has these plans.
Well, let me get it. See, thank you. Sorry.
If we could please just bring up the site page. I think it was a separate document.
Okay, was that part of this or?
I believe it's a separate.
I don't
Separate
see, I
document.
have to say,
We got all
Mr. Randolph, I don't see them either.
Or the code review.
Yeah.
I didn't, there was one set with 4 drawings in it, so. That's okay.
Well, if that is the case, that is my
No
error.
problem. Keep going.
There's that extra PowerPoint
Yeah,
that's
they're
been
not in the
provided.
folder.
Just if it hasn't, please do so.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
That power is, I take it that PowerPoint is a combination of slides.
Yes, and that's all been submitted
Oh, okay.
days ago.
No worries. Continue,
Yeah,
go
they're
ahead.
just not in our packet.
Thank you. Yes, for the record, Brian Phillips with Langen Engineering, 555 Long Wharf Drive in New Haven. I think I'll wait until the drawing comes up to begin the presentation. Essentially, the proposed addition will sit on the footprint of the existing gym, which is to be demolished. The proposed addition adds about 12,000 square feet of building footprint. Currently, I guess I should.
Yeah, wait a second.
Yeah, I'll wait a minute.
Not seem to have anything but the application.
Come on, just go to the, just bring up what you had before and we can just go through it.
I think at the end of the PDF, it said site. I think these are the architectural drawings. There should be a separate PDF.
Is that the initial one? I think that just has the renderings. No.
I believe Attorney Fallon sent them a couple weeks ago.
It's just one thing.
July 23rd.
File?
On the bottom there, number 8.
No, that's.
This has the application.
So there should be 2 PDFs then.
Yes.
That's the only one I saw.
Is the originally submitted plan set on file? By any chance?
Yeah, the plans that were there.
I have a copy. Apologize to the commission. That is my error. We didn't get the complete upload.
July 9th. It's there.
July 15th.
Yeah, we have them. I just, if it's not in the link, then that's our error.
The link, as here's the link to the civil presentation drawing that Brian Phillips will refer to at the hearing. Also attached are the architectural exhibits, so there were 2 separate. That was July 15th.
Get extra email.
Let me
But
see.
if we have,
I can hold those drawings up.
Yeah, I can.
Huh?
I can hold it up.
Here, I'll go to the, I'll go to the site plan. Yeah, this is.
I'll hold it. Okay, with apologies to the commission. I will do my best to ease it.
So this is the existing parking lot for the prep school, and it's at an elevation approximately 122. The existing footprint of the existing gym is, approximately half of what you see. The darker is the proposed addition.
Where's the entrance to?
The main entrance where the quad is to the north.
I see North
off
Bronson.
of this page.
Okay, I
This
see
is-
North Bronson Road.
North Benson.
North Benson, this is Murphy Road, and the main entrance to campus is just north of this
Okay.
page. So this is.
So that's the
back
lower
side.
parking lot and the fields below?
So this is the lower parking lot, below that is Crowder.
Okay, gotcha.
So this parking lot here, essentially, we are just pushing it back for the new addition. Site grades will roughly be maintained. There currently exists a pedestrian connection to that lower parking lot here with a crosswalk that runs through the parking lot. We're proposing to eliminate that, move the staircase, a proposed staircase here to simplify the entry sequence, and added pedestrian safety here, direct them to a new sidewalk. We are proposing to redistribute the ADA spaces to the new proposed entrances of the building evenly, as well as two new EV parking spaces. Additionally, McInnes Road right now is oversized and there is an existing drop-off area. We're just proposing to right-size that road with standard roadway widths and have a dedicated striped bus drop-off area.
Just a point of clarification, this is all private property, right?
Correct.
I just want, so that's the entrance of the university? Yeah.
So the main entrance where the quad is,
off of North Benson.
off of North Benson is to the north, it's off this page. This is, this is the main prep that has the 2 wings that come out. The quad is up here. This is the back.
And where if you know where the existing gym is now, if you go to the back of the building, it says Brissette Gymnasium. That's where this addition is
He's
going.
talking about the gym to the high school, not to the college.
Yeah,
Right.
the gym to the high school, that's
If you
where.
drive in,
Steps that
if
go
you
up there.
drive in off of North Benson Road, And as you come in, on your left are the two buildings that comprise prep with the big center quad area. And if you go down where the guard station is, and then you take a left-hand turn and go down that road to the back of prep, there's a sign that says the set gymnasium. That's where this addition is going. It's going to the rear of the building, more or less facing the parking lot that looks out onto the School of Nursing and the campus center.
Can you just point to where the steps that go up to that gym, where are they here?
The steps that go,
Up to that gym and,
yeah,
The existing gym,
yeah,
they're right, shown right.
okay.
So those will be demolished, the existing
North
gym.
Benson runs along the right side of that.
Correct, yep, north is up on this page.
And the existing building,
The existing building is approximately
Skinny
right
building.
here.
so you're adding to the right side of that?
We are adding to the south and to the right.
So what are you doing with the existing senior lot?
that's staying.
Okay.
I will also add that we are showing two locations for proposed bicycle parking, one of which will have a shelter over it. Okay. I think we can. go to the- Yeah. So the proposed grading and drainage will be, matching grades as much as possible. The existing parking lot will more or less be maintaining that existing higher elevation. Whereas along McKinnis, we are down a story essentially, and that will be maintained as well. The existing drainage patterns, roof drainage from the existing building as well as the existing gym are all collected in a storm network, which makes its way towards the west. So all of those drainage patterns will be maintained. We are proposing a traditional network of catch basins and pipe, as well as a new approximately 12,500 cubic foot underground detention system, which will accept roof drainage from some of the existing building, which currently runs in this direction, as well as the majority of the proposed roof drainage.
Is it underground leach or does it continue into the storm system?
So the underground system will be open for infiltration. There is an outlet control structure which will control the flow from the system. And that during larger storm events will continue to travel in the same direction as the drainage does currently.
And we've heard about water outflow from prep affecting the neighbors. This is pretty far away, but where does that? Yes, where does the outflow go ultimately?
So ultimately, we are, about halfway up on the campus. So this drainage outfalls into an open channel, creek bed drainage channel here, which runs down, goes into another large pond, another pond,
Series of
all
detention
on
basins.
campus.
Yep.
These are large, existing
picture them.
detention ponds. So before making it way down eventually to borrow, but I will add that we are adding enough underground detention here to meet the engineering's requirements of reducing the post-development 10-year storm down to the pre-development 2-year. So it's a fairly stringent reduction.
Can you explain that?
So the 2-year storm event, the volume of water created from a storm event that happens about every 2 years. And then we look at, in our analysis, we look at the 2-year, the 10-year, the 50-year and the 100-year storm event, which all increase in intensity. So we look at the existing condition of, how much peak flow water there is during the 2-year storm event versus the proposed condition where, while we are not adding a significant amount, there is about 3,000 square foot of impervious coverage added. With some of the new requirements that engineering has, Fairfield Engineering, we are required to reduce the post-development 10-year storm event flow to the pre-development 2-year. So what that equates to is essentially we're reducing the flow from the 2-year event by approximately 46, almost 50%. So there is a significant amount of water peak flow reduction with this proposal.
As far as it not entering into the existing drainage, it's dissipated on site.
Yes, it will. Essentially, the volume is still essentially the same. There will be some infiltration, which that volume is discarded into the ground. But because of the system, the peak flows are attenuated. So, if we didn't have this detention, the peak flow of the storm, the top of the crest is higher than it would be here because we are holding the water temporarily throughout the storm.
Commissioner Harrison.
I had a question. So the small renovation that's taking place on the third floor of Birchman's Hall, is that part of the overall 32,000 square foot addition?
It is not.
Okay.
It is not.
How many square feet are in that renovation area?
The Birchman's area, we'll get you that number. That's existing space.
Just being reconfigured.
It's just being renovated. But we'll still get you the number when Caitlin comes up.
Commissioner Braun.
I see in an aerial that there's a couple of large trees down at the bottom right-hand corner. I assume those will be cut down?
I can go to the
Oh,
planting
okay,
plan.
sure.
Yeah, I can run through, the only other plans here, we have a utility plan, which is fairly straightforward. We're just rerouting utilities to serve the new building. The soil erosion and sediment control plan is all traditional silt fences, protection, and sediment stockpiles. So,
Did this need a wetlands permit?
no.
Did not.
So the planting plan here, currently in the parking lot, there are no landscaped islands. We are proposing 2 new landscape islands with shade trees. There are existing mature trees along this slope between Murphy and the parking lot, as well as numerous existing mature vegetation along the frontage on North Benson. So with that, maintaining that existing vegetation and the addition of 3 shade trees within the parking lot and the landscape islands, we are meeting the requirements for a parking lot. There are some trees that will be taken down.
Is it possible to add trees on the sort of lower left side where there's some green space that's remaining on the corner of Murphy and McInnes? There seems to be like a green area there.
Murphy.
That's not being eaten up by the development. Yeah, like down there.
Down here, we
down there.
can look at.
I'd like to see some adders of trees just to sort of compensate for, I know it's great you're adding the 2 islands. Is that taking away any parking spaces to add those 2 islands in the parking lot?
Technically, yes.
Okay. Will there be a problem with overflow parking?
No, as I said at the beginning, we've got very sufficient parking.
It'd be nice to add a few trees somewhere where you could, just to make up for the loss of the trees and loss to the added impervious surface.
Are you taking any trees down on North Benson?
No.
No, same question as Commissioner Braun. Thank you.
And then I'm not sure how much we can gain from the photometric plan, but essentially we are proposing the existing campus standard Sternberg fixture with a dark sky compliant and full cutoff fixture.
That's great.
And as I said, before we filed, we did share our proposal with the North Benson and Dill neighbors and received no feedback.
Harrison.
Just kind of random, just historical purposes. When was the last time Prep did a significant renovation?
I should know because I did it, and it was the addition that tied together Berkman and Xavier Hall. And time flies when you're having fun, but how long ago was that?
I believe that was early 2000s, around
Yeah, I would
early
say
2000s, and then the Student Life Center, that was added in about 2012, 2013. And apologize for the record, Katie Hurley, Fairfield University, EVP Facilities.
Thank you. I know you guys have a great crew team, so.
Okay, so Mr. Phillips is here. Should anybody else have any other questions that come to mind? I'd like to ask Caitlin Chapin from Newman Architects to come and give you a brief overview of the proposed exterior design and interior floor plan, and then I'll have a few closing remarks. Caitlin.
Thanks. So if you can scroll down just a little bit, we're gonna start at the bottom elevation on this page, which is considered the east elevation. So that would be as if you're standing in the parking lot where you currently enter the main entrance of the building. So the left in the shaded gray would be the addition. And to the far right is the section through the expanded lobby space to enter into the existing facilities. What you'll see is that the addition is complementary to the scale of the existing building, and it's actually it's shorter than the existing academic spaces, which is a couple stories higher. So proportionally, it fits in nice with the existing context. The predominant mass you're seeing in the center of this image is the gym itself, where there are the 3 courts that John had shared earlier. The material of this brick is predominantly brick, and it's complementary to the existing brick, so it'll be seamlessly integrated into the building materials. We'll have some accents of EFS banding to articulate some of the more detailed components on the building in this image. And then if you scroll back up to the top, you're looking at the west elevation, and this is the view from McGinnis Road. And so as Brian shared, the grade drops almost a story from the east to the west, so you inherently have an additional level on this side from the grade perspective, but the grade elevation at this lower level is matching the existing floor line of the existing sub basement that's adjacent. So it's matching the level of stories here. On this lower level, we'll have the supporting spaces for the athletic programs, and then to the far right of the page is the Arts and Media Center, which is like a black box theater. You'll see some curtain wall at the main entrances, but again, the predominant building material is brick. It will be the same color palette as the existing building, and we'll have some accents of EFS banding. If you go to the next exhibit, this is the view from North Benson, which is the main prep entrance. Hopefully this is hard to see the addition because there is a robust tree line right now along North Benson that really conceals the school from the road. And then what you are seeing just in the entry drive there is the addition to the left that's nestled behind the tree line. So you can see in this rendering very similar color palette to what's existing, so it's hard to tell what's new from the old. On the next exhibit, we'll have the lower level floor plan. Can scroll down just a little bit more. So as I shared, this is predominantly the supporting athletic spaces. So in that middle chunk there, you'll have locker rooms, you'll have an erg room, which is the rowing, the cardio machines for the athletes. And to the right of that middle block, actually use my pointer. So you have the locker rooms, the erg room, and then a strength training room. And then you'll have the main Arts and Media Center here. The supporting spaces around are complementary, including the building support spaces, as well as the athletic director offices. And on the upper level, you'll find the main entrance to the building. And the predominant program on this floor is the gymnasium. So we'll have three cross courts and one main feature court that is in the gym here. The main entrance is here, and you can go into the existing buildings both directions. And then to the south, it'll have its own secondary entrance that has some stairs that brings you to the lower level if you need to access the Arts and Media Center. And that is it.
Thank you, Caitlin. Any questions for Chapin?
Could you just flip through the renderings? Did you have some renderings in here?
We did.
Real fast, since we don't have them.
Yes.
Maybe just the two exterior?
Yes, the exterior, sure. Why don't we?
At the end here,
It's and then so I think your second tab, the top, just the first two images though, please.
There you go.
So this is from the east facade. So this is from the parking lot. So the addition on the left side
here, the south entrance. This will be the main entrance for the students, and then this is the existing building.
To your right is the existing back, if I call it back entrance to the university, to the prep. And then what you see in the left of that is the new addition.
Are we looking from North Benson?
Well, you're in the parking lot, what's been referred to as the senior lot. You have come off of North Benson Road now, and you're on the campus. And this is to the rear of the front of the building. And it's a back entrance. And the new addition that we're discussing tonight is that structure to the left of the existing building.
It's not a very wide structure.
It starts right here and it's
Oh,
there.
Yeah.
It matches well too.
Well, definitely. It'll be,
Beautiful building.
I think as Caitlin says, it'll be seamless in terms of the architecture and the materials, which was obviously the goal.
Where's the wrestling room?
It's not a room, it's going to overlap one of the courts, so they'll be able to roll the mats out on.
Okay.
I thought you would ask that.
are they making the gym smaller then? 'Cause-
No, it's larger
Oh, okay.
than what the existing gym is. What that
When you
same.
switch off that, I guess it's the same. If you go back to the other image.
The other, yes.
This one.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know you're technically in compliance with the ratio of trees per parking space, but it does look like a bit of a moonscape there.
In order to see the addition, we have to imagine the trees in this
That's not
particular
showing the
rendering.
Yeah, that's not showing the.
It's not
Oh,
showing.
the trees have been removed from there.
Yeah.
So are there islands?
Yeah,
Yes,
there's
there are.
islands there, right where the stripes is in the middle row.
Okay.
Right. So the rendering was meant to depict the architecture. Your point is well taken. It did not depict what Mr. Phillips testified to in terms of the islands and the trees, nor did it take into consideration what we could look at as Commissioner Braun asked in terms of some additional plantings in that corner area.
The scale looks good. It matches the building, looks nice. I'm not gonna say what I did about the car dealer, so.
Wasn't mine.
Where's the store going?
The store will stay right where it
Yes,
is,
yep.
because that building is not going to be disturbed. So you'll still go in the back, walk up those back steps, and your store is right there to the left, and the reception area is right in front of you.
Better hours too.
I hope so. I have to buy a lot of prep gear.
I know.
You see the backside or
Yeah,
the front
this
side?
is the
This is the back.
second-
this is the front.
This is the west elevation. So as I had shared,
That's McKinnis.
this is on McKinnis, the School of Nursing is behind you. This is the Arts and Media Center. Curtain wall that connects between the two masses. The gym is above, and then the supporting spaces for strength training. The erg room and the locker room has no windows on the lower level.
Thank you, Caitlin.
That's really good.
So just to briefly conclude, I think in terms of, this is obviously a special exception use in the AA zone. And as with your prior applications that we've brought to you over the years for Fairfield University, I hope you will agree that we have addressed the standards that apply to such an application. In essence, this addition will be consistent with, I hope you will agree, and harmonize with the architectural character of the existing prep buildings. There will not be any off-site impacts associated with what we are proposing. And due to the fact that the building, as you've seen, will be located to the rear of the existing prep structures and is also in a very central area of the campus and will have very limited visibility from off-site locations. Notwithstanding that, we did provide our neighbors with advance information with regard to the application before we made it and have not heard anything back from them. So we feel that we do apply and have applied the standards of section 27 to this application. So in summary, the addition has been sensitively architecturally designed to ensure that it will be attractive and harmonize with the existing Fairfield Prep buildings. It will allow Prep to continue developing well-rounded students, preparing for a lifetime of success, we hope, while supporting both physical health and academic achievement. And we'll do that providing through this particular proposal, additional space to enhance the existing facilities and provide for expanded arts and athletics programs. And all this is consistent with PrEP's ongoing commitment to continue to offer the highest quality academic and athletic programs and facility to all of our students. And we'd be pleased to answer any questions you might have, and very much appreciate your consideration of the application.
Initial, thank you.
Thank you.
Concludes the initial presentation. I don't see anybody else in person, but I'll just say generally, does any member of the public be heard on this application in person or remotely? Harrigan, do we have anybody?
There's one person and I've asked them if they would like to speak, but they have not responded.
That's fine. Any member of the public wish to be heard on this application? Not hearing anything, I'll close the public.
Just want to answer Commissioner Harrison, the interior renovated space already existing between is 9,400 square feet. But that's existing space. We're just renovating. Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Concludes this hearing on this application, and I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.